It's now 34 minutes after 8 here on the AM show. Now, let's have that conversation with regards to the Right to Information Bill, because Parliament on Thursday evening decided that there should be more work done on this bill by the House in terms of Parliament. And so it should be done under a no, it's not going to be done under a certificate of urgency. And I guess that's the big issue now. But let's speak to Chairman of the RTI coalition. They've been pushing really for the passage of this Right to Information Bill. Mr. Seth Abloso is here with me this morning for us to speak on the back of this. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Sure. Finally, the bill has been relayed in Parliament. I think the worry was we didn't know when it was going to go back to Parliament. We should be happy that it's in Parliament, shouldn't we?
Well, we're happy that it's in Parliament. Was it relayed?
But,
okay.
But it's not going to be considered under a certificate of urgency. That's the contention now.
Yeah.
It's going to go through the normal processes for it to be passed.
It should actually go through the normal processes. And we had problems. We were uncomfortable really with the President's declaration on the 6th of March that the bill was going to be laid in Parliament and get passed before Parliament rose. Okay. And we were wondering how. Because the normal process is that before a bill is laid in Parliament, it should receive Gazette notification. It hadn't received Gazette notification. And if it has, what subsequently follows is that Parliament invites memoranda from the public. And sometimes, even depending on the nature of the bill, the relevant parliamentary committee meets, conducts public fora all over the country. So it couldn't have been passed as the President indicated. And we had no illusion about that. And we were in fact surprised that that should be pushed into the President's 6th of March speech. Then come last Thursday, Parliament says it's not going to be on the certificate of urgency. We are fine with it, so long as it gets duly gazetted, it receives Gazette notification, as indeed all bills should have before they land in Parliament.
Okay.
We are fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get your point. That's the only way you know that this is going to be considered.
That we know that this is properly before the House.
Okay.
Yes.
But if it had gone under a certificate of urgency, that would have just sped up the whole process.
But even under certificate of urgency, it requires prior Gazette notification. You can't. That's a critical requirement, a sine qua non for business in Parliament, and you can't freeze that another.
So I guess effectively, what you're telling us is we shouldn't really be excited because nothing really has been triggered. The fact that we're told that
actually what it is that Parliament and the executive, in this case represented by the Attorney General, is doing what is proper now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to, read a bit of what happened, how this news came about last Thursday. We're told that the House at a plenary, following a recall by the Speaker, voted in favor of a joint determination that even though there is a high public interest in the matter, it does not need to be taken with a rush. The Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, referred the bill when it was laid before him to a joint committee of the Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs and Communications for consideration and report to the plenary amidst immense public pressure for a speedy passage. By a unanimous decision, the bill would now go through the normal legislative process for passage. However, the committee's preliminary discussions and memoranda received from stakeholders require that due consultations be made. And we know that's where it ended because Parliament really is on recess. That was just an emergency recall back to the House. So we'll see if this will be taken up. But the point is that you've already made some input into this bill. Correct?
In spite of the procedural defects, Parliament did invite inputs, and we made submission accordingly. So whichever way, now this is, if it's properly gazetted, then now we have a bill.
Okay.
The last bill, which couldn't get passed, literally went dead with Parliament, when Parliament
with the last session, with the last Parliament.
Yes, it's so we have had no bill since then, and that is why it's critical that the document which now goes to Parliament as a bill should have a reference in the Gazette, published by Assembly Press, the date, and then on the bill itself, the date should be so indicated. Yes. So,
were you satisfied with the previous bill that almost got passed but couldn't?
Look,
were you familiar with the content of that?
That bill, we fine-tuned everything in that bill, and we had gone through all the processes with the parliamentary committee.
Okay.
The last time we sat with the parliamentary committee was here in Accra, after the bill had been withdrawn because it had too many amendments. We sat with the committee, and both sides, together with civil society representation, agreed on almost everything. What was left for us to be laid in Parliament. So that bill received Gazette notification in October 2016, and then was now relayed before Parliament, because the earlier one with a multitude of proposed amendments had been withdrawn. So that bill, Parliament shouldn't have risen without passage of that bill.
But we know how it ended.
Yes, and
so what's your expectation that what is going before the committee now? What has been referred to the committee is an entirely new bill, or is just the old one that's been brought back? Do you know?
Well, it's supposed to be a new bill.
Okay, but the contents.
It's coming.
The contents.
The contents. Not much has changed.
But the changes have been significant?
Proposed changes. Well, let me not get into
that. Is it by the executive? Is it by the executive?
It's by the executive.
Okay.
Yes, it's by the executive.
So the bill is not the same. The bill, as you saw it, before it almost got passed, is not the same as what has been referred to the committee now.
Particularly because it's the NPP that torpedoed the last passage. A case will be made not to present the same thing. Otherwise, in fact, what could have been done would have been to only change the signature who presents it,
and the dates, and the dates.
That is all that should have gone.
So what has been changed? What has been added?
Well, some inputs have been made to make it look different.
Okay, such as?
Well, consider that I can't.
I'm trying to appreciate where you're coming from. What you're saying.
Having seen this, in fact, even being gazetted, so to be difficult to comment on it as an official. As an official document.
Okay, but what you've seen.
So let's see.
I appreciate that, yes. But does that make you happy what you've seen? Because see, for a lot of Ghanaians, and for those of us who even need the bill to be passed so we can do our work with it, it will make it a lot more easier. We're not the frontline pushers. You are doing, the coalition is doing it on behalf of every Ghanaian. But so when you see it and you are satisfied with it, it's almost as if we're satisfied.
But the coalition includes, if you are making reference to the media, the coalition
includes the media.
The GJA.
I get it, but I'm saying that for individual Ghanaians and for individual, so not everybody, for instance, will meet the committee. Not everybody would do the work with the committee like you have in terms of the coalition and other civil organizations.
Okay,
Civil society organizations. So I'm saying that if you see it and you're satisfied, then it's almost as if we are all satisfied.
Yes.
So that's why I asked the question, for the little that you've seen, even though it hasn't been gazetted, so you don't want to accept it as the official document. But
Yes.
from what you've seen, is that good or that's bad?
Now, we've made some, let me say that without getting to the specifics, we've made what will require some consideration for amendment or inclusion, if I should put it that way.
I'm not sure I understand what you said.
What I'm saying is that what we've seen, that is without Gazette notification,
Sure.
it's not satisfactory.
Okay.
It's almost, but not satisfactory.
Okay. Okay. So what's the plan going forward with the coalition?
Particularly because now Parliament says it should be properly, it should go through the due process. Yes, due process. We wait to engage the committee when it receives Gazette notification.
Okay.
And memoranda are duly invited from the public.
Okay. So I guess you're still monitoring. But I wanted us to, because they in the story, and I picked the story from myjoyonline.com in terms of this reference that the speaker has made with the bill and the fact that it's not going to be considered under a certificate of urgency. It makes reference to Article 106 in terms of the process, and I thought that it would be good to just run through what that article says so that we know what to expect in the coming weeks, really, when Parliament is back. So 106, mode of exercising legislative power. It says the power of Parliament to make laws shall be exercised by bills passed by Parliament and assented to by the President. No bill other than such a bill as is referred to in paragraph A, Article 108 of this Constitution shall be introduced in Parliament unless it is accompanied by an explanatory memorandum setting out in detail the policy and principles of the bill, the defects of the existing law, the remedies proposed to deal with those defects, and the necessity for its introduction. And it has been published in the Gazette at least 14 days before the date of its introduction in Parliament. So, sir, this is the point where you're making that when we get to B, then you know that this is official.
Yes.
Okay. So a bill affecting the institution of, okay, I'm not sure we're concerned with the chieftaincy matters, so, but the B is the point where you're making that. If it's gazetted, then you know that this is official.
Then
we're going forward.
Then it's official. Then we can speak to it directly.
Okay, but are you confident though? Because this is a step. Are you confident though that we will see this passed anytime soon?
I'm confident that we will see it passed, duly passed, because the President has given clear indication that he wants such a bill passed. So he gives it presidential assent to become law in Ghana. And he in fact dwells mainly on its imports in the anti-corruption crusade. But the RTI legislation is not only for anti-corruption purposes, it's generally for good governance purposes. It promotes confidence in the executive because the public knows what the executive is doing. And the President says, in fact, that the public needs to know what persons in authority are doing for them and in their name. That is critical. So we're confident that it will get passed this year. In fact, as a matter of fact, last year the Vice President, Dr. Baumia, indicated that left to him, a bill like that should be passed within 100 days, the first 100 days of their being in office. Subsequently, we've heard some discordant notes within the NPP that are very worrying. Very worrying because they undermine the manifesto, what the NPP said in the year 2000. And then in subsequent manifestos, as well as the manifesto with which they won
the last elections.
The last elections. And I think the indication that the president has given requires that he exerts the appropriate authority to let his people fall in line, particularly those of his people in parliament. We have a rather curious arrangement where parliament, the executive is involved in parliament. Majority of MPs are supposed to come from parliament.
Yeah, as ministers.
Yes. So in fact, we don't have clear
separation
of powers.
Yeah.
And when somebody associated with the executive and also in parliament gives indications that RTI law is not necessary, it is very worrying.
Would you want to say who said this?
The deputy majority leader. He made some disturbing remarks to that effect.
Ajosafo?
No. The deputy majority leader is this gentleman, Joe Seuzu.
Oh, yeah. So that's the first deputy speaker?
Sorry, first deputy speaker, yes.
Okay.
So when the first deputy speaker, who should ensure that when the bill is in parliament, gets work done, who will sometimes even preside over proceedings when the speaker is not available, publicly indicates that RTI law is not a priority, cannot be a priority. You ask yourself, where is he coming from? Yes.
We'll try and do the necessary follow-ups, but of course we'll also be following through to see when this is gazetted, and then we'll pick it up from there. But I'd like to say good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning on the show. And thank you for all the works that you do, really.
Thank you.
That's Seth Ablosu, who is chairman of the RTI Coalition. Stay with us. Up next, Becky is here with entertainment.